Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa Life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The SPA in Spa Life stands for Seek Power Always. We have that power within us to make impact in the world. And I am thrilled to introduce to you our special guest today, Kathryn R Martin. She is definitely making an impact in the world. She helps successful leaders and mission-driven businesses around the world who are at a crossroads of some kind to move boldly into their next chapter. Kathryn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Diane. Great to be here.
It's so wonderful to be here. And, you do this, you're a leadership coach. And so, a lot of people don't always know exactly what that is. And that can be such an interesting term. But you really work with entrepreneurs and really top people in the country that you step in as an interim CEO and transition strategist for the arts and culture organization. So that's a very niched area that you're doing. Tell us a little bit about how you show up as a leadership coach and why this area.
So, I'm still working on the language or the visualization to not do this. I'm a professional interim CEO and I'm a leadership coach. And of course, when I work with my clients and when I think about myself, we are just one thing. We're us and how we be and how we show up in the world and our impact. So yes. There is an industry and I have a profession where I'm a professional interim CEO and I go into organizations and guide them through times of change. And I work with leaders, especially successful women who are at a crossroads of some kind and looking to make a change, feeling a pulling. Maybe they don't know they want to make a change, but they feel that there is something more that they are meant to do.
So I love this because I feel like there's this tug, especially those of us that we want to serve in the world and we want to make an impact. And I know that part of your, secret sauce is that you help them curate, their dream work and the life scenario that they're meant to live. Yes. When people have that kind of calling, if you will, of what that is within them, how is it that you're pulling that out of them?
So it's been interesting. So I would say 99.9% of my calls are from successful women who I'm not sure they articulate always that they want to have more impact, but they feel like something's not right. It's either they're not happy with their current situation, whether that's a job or the whole work-life balance, or they're successful. And in fact, it's often sometimes hard for them to call me in a way because they're successful. Their industry views them, their peers view them as successful, and yet there's just this knowing that they or wondering or curiosity or feeling that there's something more. And so often, whether I'm an interim CEO or this leadership coach, it's just I see them, I see the possibilities, and actually I help them reveal the impact that you are already having. So, I want to have more impact. Well, let's start with the impact that you are having and actually that you've been having since a child, if we really want to go there. And so really it's just how do we build that, how do we know it, create the causes and conditions to cultivate it, and then keep that momentum going. So if I'm stuck, I'm not happy. Well, actually, you are in motion and you're not stuck. Because if we look at the evidence, you've been doing when you show up as your best self, when you do that thing that you do that no one else does exactly the same, even if it's only one time a year or one time a day, I don't know, but if we can know that deeply, figure out the causes and conditions that will help you do that on a regular basis, then you can build the momentum. You can also build the language. Language is a really important tool to help manifest that impact that you want to have.
I think it's so powerful that you really point to what is working. So many times when we're not sure what the next step is, we can discount all the steps that we've done to get to where we're at. So have that acknowledgement, I think, is so important, especially as women, because we're always like going to the next thing and celebrating the moment and having that as what Sandra Yancey always mentions as the launch pad, right? It's not being a plateau. It's not being stuck. It's the launch pad of where you're going to the next space. So I love that you bring that into what you're doing. And clarity is such a huge aspect. And one of the things that we like to talk about is how you consciously create your life. You know, that's that design element versus living by default and letting things just, you know, happen as they happen. I
That's
know
right.
that you interject something called the point B of impact. Can you tell us a little bit of how you utilize that to have real clarity?
Absolutely. So it's very pragmatic, very practical. So here's where I am, right? This is my life, but here's where I want to be. So, and then once we know this, and so what do you really want? This is the big question. What do you really want? What do you really, really want? Because we have to be able to define that point B of impact. And I do it in terms of impact. I'll tell you about that in a second.
Okay.
Because if we don't know where we are, be the expert on us, and if we don't know where we really, really want to be and how we want to be, it's only by knowing this that we can create then the how we're going to get there. The how we're going to get there is very easy.
Right.
But a lot of people jump over this. So, you know, we all know people that, oh, they quit their job because they were unhappy and they wanted this job. And then they got this job and they're not happy. Or, you know, and there's so many. So it's because we didn't identify this well enough. And so if someone's coming to me and said, you know, should I stay in this employee situation? Should I start my business? Should I do this or this or this or this? Instead, we go up a level. Let's not talk of our life in terms of job titles and even roles. Let's talk about our life and think about our point B in terms of what is the impact that we want to have in the world. Because when we really know that, no matter what job we do, if we're doing that, our purpose, we're going to be happy. Yes. So it opens up the possibilities. So let's not limit ourselves as women to should I do this or should I do this? It's and it's deeper. And I found that the word impact is just a great way to frame everything.
Right, right. You know, and I love how you talk about like to do you, right? Yeah. And so many times we can kind of pigeonhole ourselves into when we go into the roles and the specifics, because sometimes that's too much in the minutia until you have that bigger picture of what that looks like. And, you know, why I think this is such a juicy conversation, I think our listeners will really want to lean in to this aspect of it, is we really have to embrace all areas. And one of the things that I've really noticing, I just came back from Mastermind with my Synergy group. And one of the things, the nuances that I looked at is what was part of my client base was that people that had like family obligations and how the family obligations that they had were having impact on their greater work they were doing, that sometimes they felt at conflict because they loved their work. And of course they loved their family, but how some of those things move together, how you're being in that, you're actually creating a life experience, not just a job pigeonhole. It's how you want to show up in the world. So I love this conversation because sometimes if you get so much into the minutia of the role, you don't really address how you want to be, so that you're not always, when you're in one area, you're thinking of the other. And when you're here with your family, you're thinking of the work.
Women are great at doing that. Okay, we're really good at doing that. But wow, such stress. You know, there are so many career coaches, and I used to work in recruiting. And I was talking to a woman who she said, Kathryn, you are the 6th professional that I'm calling for career advice. Wow. And 5 really major recruiters had created a plan for her, helped her create a plan where she was going to be moving out of her city to advance. And I was the only one that asked or helped her reveal that she had 2 children and she's a single mom and she didn't want to move out of her community.
Right.
And so we created a plan that was let her be the amazing leader that she is and the mom and because if we just pretend like part of our life doesn't exist, how can we curate? I like this word, you know, how can we curate this integrated full life that we're meant to lead?
I think that's so brilliant. And so it's so important when you're looking at, I mean, this is why we talk about, with SpaLife, it's the accomplishment and the harmony, right? You can have all the accomplishment in the world, but if you aren't like loving your life and you don't have that harmony and it doesn't express all the different aspects of yourself, I see why you're in the arts, right? I mean, it's just all the aspects of you and what that looks like. And I love how you really incorporate like doing the things that make your heart sing. I mean, is that the litmus test that you really look at, is what makes your heart sing?
It is, and this is new for me. I would say 3 years. This is in alignment with the leap that I made to launch my own business, and now the clients that I'm attracting. So I now have the evidence to know that when our hearts are singing, that I mean by that, but that we're being our best selves, we're having the impact that we're meant to have, we're having joy in our lives. The evidence supports that you are then the people whose hearts are singing are having impact in the world. They're living in their purpose. They're helping others. They're making the world a better place. So instead of starting with I want to help make the world a better place, let's start with, I want to make my heart sing. And I'm going to make choices every day that will be in alignment with that and see what happens. Oh, I just got chills.
This is so beautiful because, I know some of the things that I know a lot of times my listeners are multitaskers and they're probably driving and they're doing all these other things and they may not hear some of the nuances. So I just want to make sure that this part actually lands, because in the busyness of people's life, and I actually don't even like using that word anymore because it's such a catch thing, because it makes you feel like you're powerless and that you're not a choice. And we're really about standing in your power and making those choices. That, in a world where you have a very full platter, Kathryn, you have a lot of things and a lot of things you could be doing. You made a choice for you and Peter when you decided to kind of step out of your world for a bit to go on an adventure, right? And I know this had amazing impact for you. And I'd love to really, share what the adventure is and how you decided to incorporate that into your life. And what impact has it had on you now that you're starting to step back into, what is now your new reality?
Well, and I love that you asked this question in the context of time and busyness, because it's, again, go back to that, for me, that point B. So what is it that we really, really want in terms of impact? And then we must once we get that clear, make decisions that are only going to create the possibility for us to achieve it. So that can be a litmus test every single day of where do we want to choose to spend our time, because you're right, we are in charge of those choices. And thank you for asking. So Peter and I just returned from a 30-day global pilgrimage. We with a group of people, small group of people, we circumnavigated the globe. We went to over 7 countries with the intention of personal growth, mindfulness, and healing the planet, connecting the planet. And it's still challenging to really describe what that was. But one of the things is, look, Peter, who has a job, and I, who has a thriving business, just took 30 days off of social media for the most part, off of email, and it worked. 3 years ago, I would have said, that's impossible. We don't have the resources, we don't have the time, on and on and on. But it was part of what Peter and I envisioned for our point B as a couple. We were very clear. We didn't know if this trip was going to be possible, but we lived in that possibility, and it was. And I think one of the takeaways, so we went to Egypt, India, Tanzania, Israel, Tibet, China, maybe I'm forgetting something. And if I had to summarize, what was the one takeaway, if there was only one, it was that as women, but I suppose as people, that we belong. So I belong next to a woman in a burqa. I belong at the Wailing Wall next to elderly Jewish practitioners. I belong in a synagogue. I belong in talking with a holy lama. And I'm not sure if my words are going to be able to convey the depth, but because I now know that the women in all of that we are all human beings, and that we all share the desire to be loved, to belong, to make a difference. I feel so connected to the world, and fearless in a way about, and that's a funny word to use too when thinking about different cultures, but fearless about connecting eye to eye with other human beings and seeing what happens in that space. So it's very exciting. I'm still percolating on all of the impact, but I know that when I show up in love and with the intention to connect with another human being, it does create the possibility for peace and love and understanding. And I feel that deeply. So thank you for asking.
Yes, what a beautiful experience. And this is such a great example for our listeners that, what may seem impossible, that when you set that intention, when you are clear of the container that you want to choose and how you want to live your life, that you can just, make a powerful stance and just say, okay, we will find a way to make this happen. And, people, you and Peter are not world travelers. This has not been part of your experience. This is something stepping totally out of, what would be the norm. And
Yes.
it's amazing that you did this and you stood for yourselves, because, life is short. A lot of times we say like, well, when I retire or someday, and you may not be able to climb that mountain this someday, or you may not be able to be present to the experience you want to have in your life. And the experiences that we have now and in the moment, and you don't have to go to another country for this. You could actually have your own, pilgrimages and discoveries and things like staycations, where you look outside of your normal experience of life and decide what are the impacts, what kind of the connections that you want to have. And, belongingness is such a powerful world for me as well. I don't know if you know Rhonda Renee, but she created my divine navigation about part of my purpose in the world. And, uniting generosity and being authentic and belongingness are part of the spectrums of why I'm here. So I love the fact that belongingness was an aspect of what came forth for you. And there's, it just totally reminds me too of when I've had some people really doing some heart space, heart, soul, heart core work lately. And part of their experiences have been the eye to eye experiences. And I don't know if you've actually done this, but when you are eye to eye with someone else, to be able to see into their vision and see yourself as them and from their vantage point, and looking literally past their eyes and into their soul. It's these connections in the world that make such a big impact. And we can be global like that and have these bigger experiences. And then we start looking at, how are we designing our day? What does that look like? I mean, it's a different energy that you bring to your day when you look at it from a much bigger perspective.
Yes, and this eye to eye, Diane, not only to our clients, not only to our potential clients, not only to the people that we admire, but I noticed in the supermarket yesterday, I did it, at the AT&T mobile store, I did it, and I realized that I hadn't maybe been doing it. So now, I'm setting that intention to have that eye-to-eye connection to see what happens with everybody.
I love that. That is so great. And so as you're moving back in, how do you feel like this is going to impact your work?
One of the things too, this was in this pilgrimage was in the container also of mindfulness and transformational leadership. So the idea of value, our value as leaders is often measured in the doing, or not even measured, but the way we go about having impact is by thinking about what do we want to do. And so I'm keenly aware now that my value, all of our value, comes first in how we be. The doing is an outcome of how we be. And we all, at this point in our careers, have a lot of skills. We can figure out how to do. Right. So to really understand that and invest in how I be, how I show up, and have that intentionality is a commitment that I've made now.
Oh,
And I know, therefore, that the way I can help my clients, the way I can help women at these important crossroads will only benefit from me being centered and clear on my purpose. So it's a big question, Diane, and I hope I've answered that.
absolutely. I think there's something very powerful to how we are being and how we set our vessel, our container,
Yes.
in order for us to hold the vision for our clients and for our people in our life, you know, whether they're friends, family, or clients. The container we hold is so big. And I think that I'm sure you'll agree with this, that some of the things that you've had come up with your clients, I'm seeing this now on a daily basis, is that people know what to do. You know, they know that aspect of it, or they at least have a good idea. They're on the path. There's maybe nuances and things that we can shift for them. But I'm finding that the thing that really is distinguishing how people are coming to me and what they need and the support they need is that they know what to do, but they're either not doing it, or there's something in their mindset or their deservability or how they fit it into their life, and those competing priorities, right, between family and work. It's the how you're showing up in the world aspect of it is kind of throwing up, you know, the equilibrium, if you will, of giving themselves permission to be. Right? I mean, it feels like if there's a space, we need to fill it. You know, if there's something we need to do something. And I mean, this is something that is kind of an ongoing journey with myself, where it's like, oh, I have time to fill it, versus just being present to the moment and see what comes to me in the open spaces versus that continually doing something. I think that's something that is for all of us to incorporate into our daily practice.
Yes, and that you said I'm giving ourselves permission to. And oh, I got all riled up right then because it's our responsibility to do us. It's our responsibility to show up as our best selves and live in our purpose. You know, because there's only one of us that can do this in this very specific way. So, you know, every one of your clients, every one of my clients, it's not give yourself permission. It's like, you have to do you. You have to figure out how to show up rested and energized and, you know, free of the voices in your head so that you can have the impact that you're meant to have, that the world needs you to have, that your family needs you to have. So, you know, come on.
Well, and then it's a very real part of the journey. I mean, sometimes we feel like, well, that's not a tangible thing I can check off my list. So sometimes we don't see the importance that is actually the foundation of why we're here. When we actually give ourselves permission and we actually are in that being space, that's the energy that we launch off to be able to do the doing in less time, to really create the space to do the things that we are here to do. And I know, Kathryn, that you work with a lot of successful women, you know, whether they're employees, leaders, business owners, you know, is there anything that they have in common that they are facing?
Yes. Yes. That they have reached what is viewed externally as success. And yet there's something here. And they can be happy, but and they can be sad, but there's just this, whatever this is, just this pulling, this curiosity to know to want something more. And even saying that out loud for some women can feel uncomfortable. What, you know, who am I to want more? You know, who am I to whatever, to not even know, like, why shouldn't I be happy? I have so much. But usually this means that that we're not yet living in our purpose. And that is a very vulnerable moment. And so for me, sometimes what I think is the bravest thing to do is when people make that first phone call to a coach. Hi, I'm successful. You maybe have seen me on social media or on videos, and yet I'm wanting a little bit more, you know, I'm wanting a little bit more. So I think that making that first phone call is often the hardest. And, you know, my heart goes out to just like I did, made my first phone call.
Right.
But in hindsight, my clients will say that was the moment. That was the moment of the shift. When I do small groups, I say, okay, who has experienced a change in their life, between the moment you signed up and today, our first phone call? And
Yes.
a lot of hands will go up.
Absolutely.
Because they've made that shift to be in vulnerability, to look at being in their purpose, looking at starting, taking a leap. That's how I described I took a leap. Oh.
Yeah, that's so true, because, I found that with my clients as well, as soon as they say yes, it's almost like they can take a deep breath, and they've made some room to do something different. They may not know where they're going with it or how it's going to unfold, but the fact that they've said yes to themselves opens up a space within them to now start having things happen really quickly. And a lot of times they'll be like, wow, the thing I came to has actually happened. And they don't necessarily realize it was because they allowed it. They opened up space in order to have that happen. So I'd love for you to share and elaborate a little bit more. Like, so when people are feeling pulled to that next chapter, when they're at some kind of crossroads, what is it that you have to share with them?
So, when they work with me, we go through it's a very short process. It's like 6-day intensive, virtual intensive. And I'm coming up with I keep changing the name of it, but it's Impact Intensive or Create Your Dream Career Life Intensive. And it's this, and I do it as an intensive on purpose. So that we tap into and we really understand who we are, what motivates us, what we do well, what we don't do well, what we like, what we don't like. So it's here's where we are. And then through a number of exercises, a number of strategies, we figure out what do we really, really want. It starts out by saying, I want to quit my job, or I want a promotion, or I want to, it's something, it sounds very tangible. And then we go deeper and we really try to find the evidence of the impact that person has had always when they show up. Yes. And then light bulbs usually start going off. And we then create the language to talk about that impact. And then, because sometimes when we know what we want in our heads, but if we can't articulate it in a way that is really in alignment, then it's hard for us to get it. It's hard for us to enroll and engage other people to help us find this dream scenario, and it's hard for us to talk about it. So we put the language that will help us articulate this point B, and then usually by then we're off and running. So by the end of 7 days, we know what we want. We've got the language to support it. We have the evidence to know that we have been doing it and can do it, and so we're actually not stuck and we're in momentum. And then for some people, that's it, and they're off and running. And then other people, now we go into, okay, well, let's look at your bio. Let's look at your website. Let's look at your applications. Let's look at your curtain speeches, everything. How are we messaging ourselves every single day that's in alignment with our purpose? And it's all so that we can connect with the people that we're meant to connect with and help.
Yeah, so beautiful. I love this so much. And I know that, we're going to have some of our clients that, they are at that level of success, and it's those nuances. And it's almost like it's almost more challenging when you are successful to then ask for help, because there's this expectation that you know it all. And yet we know the areas that are us, but then when we're going to the next area, how would we know, because we've not been there before? So to actually have some guidance along the way with that is so powerful. So I know that there's going to be some of our listeners that are going to want to connect with you. How can they do that, Kathryn?
Thank you. Real easy way, createyourdreamcareer.com. And if career does not resonate with you, if you're an entrepreneur, don't worry. It's just, I had to pick a word. So createyourdreamcareerlife.com, and that will connect. actually is going to connect to your listeners with a free gift as well.
Wonderful.
But it'll connect you to a way to sign up to my e-list. It'll give you a way to schedule a call with me, free call. We'll do a strategy call, 45 minutes, just focusing on you. It'll connect you with a free e-guide that I'm doing for your listeners on really what we talked about today, 3 steps that you can take today to start moving yourself in that forward direction. You're already moving in the forward direction, you just don't know it. And also just for 3 years now, I've been writing every other week a blog on this exact subject. So have access to all of those articles.
I love that. And we'll be putting in the show notes. So for those who are listening on the podcast versus, watching on either YouTube or Facebook, they'll get that link. And so that'll be available to them so they can connect with you. And one other thing I always like to ask my guests, because, we are creating, right? We're creating the experience in our environment and our life. And I always like to connect with my guests to see, what you've created in your space. I know you're in transition, but if you look at your space that you have right now, we want to have a different experience in like our bedroom versus our kitchen or office. What's currently your favorite room and why?
Oh, I am in transition because our house is up for sale because we're moving to Santa Barbara, which is another new chapter that Peter and I have curated. So the favorite room in my house right now, it's the bedroom.
Yeah.
It's the bedroom because there are, we've cleared the clutter in our whole house, and there's just a few little items there that are still personal. And the colors of the walls are not, Navajo white or whatever we repainted, and it's kind of cocoony. So it's where I go to. I'm not in a house for sale when I'm in my bedroom.
Wonderful. I love that so much. I just think that the environments that we create is such a reflection of what we've chosen for how we want to live and how we reset ourselves, and how that really sets the stage for the experience of our life. And so I also want to give to our listeners, if you've been listening to this conversation that we're having and you're wondering how you can have more of your spa life, how is it that you can have this harmony that we've been talking about and having that weave into your life, I invite you to take my Life Reset quiz. And you can just go to liferesetquiz.com. It'll take you 2 minutes and you'll get instant results back about where you're winning and what things are working for you and where you have awareness, because we know that it all starts with awareness of how you are being supported in your life. So I'd love for you guys to check that out at liferesetquiz.com. And then also put in the comments, like, what was your takeaway from here? What was something that maybe you knew, but you heard it a different way, and it's something that you can actually implement into your life? And if you have any questions, please put them in there and tag both Kathryn and myself, Kathryn R Martin and Diane Halfman. If you tag us in there, we'll come back around and answer your questions. We want to connect with you. We want to support you. We value you here in the community, and we just want to thank you for your time. And just know that it's all a journey, and to know that you have that power within you is so amazing, because you do have big gifts here in the world. So Kathryn, thank you so much for coming here on the show and sharing all of your insights and your travel and your impact in the world. We so appreciate you.
Thank you, Diane. I'm so happy to be talking with you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you again, listeners, for being here. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now.